What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of Horror. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, 31 Days of Horror, Volume 8, Day 20, coming at you live and direct. Alrighty, so we are officially into the third act of the 31 Days of Horror. We're on the home stretch with Day 20, and still going strong. Okay, so yesterday we were in the US, and we're going to go all the way back to Italy. I know we just did an Italian film a couple days back, but this one is a little bit different. It's actually a Spanish-Italian co-production, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. But yeah, so this is a film from 1970, and it is called Scream of the Demon Lover. Yes, this one right here is basically an Italian production. It's kind of a mismatch, actually, or a mashup of Italian actors, Spanish actors. It's like an Italian production, but it's directed by a Spanish director by the name of Jose Luis Moreno. And I wasn't really overly familiar with his work until I noticed that he directed The Hanging Woman, of course, with Paul Naschy. So I'm very familiar with that film, a film I really do love and needs actually a Blu-ray. Still rocking that old Troma DVD. But yeah, so Scream of the Demon Lover, also starring Erna Schumer, who, of course, is from Strip Nude for Your Killer from 1975, and I'm a really big fan of that film, so I recognized her face right away. She was also in a film called The Doll of Satan, aka La Bambola di Satana. And if you're an avid watcher of the channel, you know that joke right there from a past 24-hour marathon that me and Godzilla did. I think that was one of the first or second films that we did in the Italian marathon. And she was actually in a film called Spectres, that I recently watched. Vinegar Syndrome released a double feature with Spectres on it, starring Donald Pleasance, so I knew her from that one too, so that's pretty cool. Very beautiful, very unforgettable and stuff like that. But so yeah, so getting into the premise of Scream of the Demon Lover, basically this one follows our main character, played by Erna Schumer, who she's a biochemist, and she's basically answered this this job ad to go and work in this huge kind of castle for this baron. And so when she arrives into the small town, I won't even get into what happens to her when she gets there, but of course the whole town is warning her not to go up to that castle and stuff like that. And of course something happens, and it's very Euro sleazy trash. Of course this would happen. But anyway, she finally makes her way to this huge castle, and she gets there, and of course the head maid or whatever, she answers the door, and she wants nothing to do with Erna's character. And of course the Baron comes down and realizes that she's a female, and he doesn't want her to be there either. He was expecting, they were expecting a male doctor. And to their amazement, it was a female, so they're both very hesitant about letting her in there. She finally talks him into letting her stay, that she can totally help with the project and stuff like that. So basically what's going on is the Baron is trying to figure out a way to bring back his deceased brother. And he figured that he needed a biochemist to help him out with his studies and whatnot and stuff like that. And basically what's happening, so the Baron has a dark past, the family history has a dark past and stuff like that. And upon her arrival, and just before that, there's been lots of women that have been going missing in the town. Bodies are mounting up and stuff like that. And she realizes that something is very off in this castle right from the start. I mean, obviously everyone's very hesitant about having her there. There's these murders that are happening, and of course, to make things worse, she starts to get drugged right away, and crazy things are happening to her and stuff like that. And yeah, so I will basically just leave the synopsis right there. I don't want to go any further without giving anything away. But yeah, so that's the short and long of the breakdown. So my thoughts on Scream of the Demon Lover. Now, this is one of those movies that it didn't surprise me at all. It has really, really good gothic atmosphere. I love the castle in it. It's set in the 19th century, so in the 1800s and stuff like that. I thought the costumes, wardrobes were really, really good and stuff like that. But to my amazement, man, this is about the time when Italian and Spanish films, they were getting super uber sleazy. It was late 60s, early 70s when they got really sleazy. But this one's no exception, man. It starts out with her character. She's on her way to the castle, and of course the guy that's gonna drive her tries to R her. I don't want to say the word because I'm always getting fucking flagged for saying that, but I can say fuck though. So you're just what the fuck? This thing's super freaking sleazy. And then to make things worse, she's in the castle, and she keeps getting drugged. and someone's doing some things to her, and she wakes up and she's like all chained up and shit like that. It's just ridiculous. Like it's so over the top and stuff like that. But anyways, she continues to, you know, kind of deal with it, I guess. It's like really odd. The plot in the narrative in this is really, it's really wonky at times. It's really crazy, actually. So she starts, you know, just kind of dealing with their things and stuff like that. And she like has these epiphanies that like maybe the experiments that the Baron is doing have altered his chemistry in his mind and stuff like that, and it's almost created like this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type character. She's convinced that he's doing the killings, but she still doesn't run away. She still manages to stay there, and things continue with her. And it's just really fucking bizarre. Like these bodies are mounting, and like all this creepiness shit's happening, and like all these characters are just acting all strange. It's super weird and shit like that. And the way this thing progresses and what happens even with her, like to make things even more odd, she ends up starting to like have a relationship with the Baron and stuff like that, which again is super odd because like I said, she kind of figures that he might be responsible for these, and then things are revealed in the movie and stuff like that. Of course, they're not exactly what they seem to be. And, you know, it's just a really wonky, sleazy, good time. Like, I mean, it's pure batshit nonsense. Really, like, when the reveal happens, you know, you kind of go, I've seen these movies before. This one honestly screams a lot of influence from, like, The Whip in the Body from Mario Bava, starring, of course, Christopher Lee. It has that, like, real violent kind of, like, Baron character, you know, and then it's got like a mix of like, is it a Dr. Jekyll and Hyde story? Is it like, is there a monster in the out prowling around? Is there something a bit like, you don't know, like it could go either way all over the place, but it has a mashup of all these familiar ideas and movies that were very present at the making of this movie in 1970. So you're watching this going, I think I've seen this movie before many, many times, but it kind of mashes and it kind of does its own thing a little bit, real sleazy and shit, but I thought it was really fun, really, really fun. But what sells it for me, the music's really good in the film, the costumes are really good, it's not like insanely overly violent, like there's deaths in the film, but it's not a lot of blood and gore, it doesn't really go into that territory a whole lot. But I think what really kind of sells this one, actually, when they eventually show the person or the people that are doing the killings, the actual makeup effect on the killer look really cool. It looks really cool, actually. So, I mean, even with that said, I'm still not giving it fully away. It could be a Jekyll and Hyde thing. It could be someone else, whatever. But honestly, this was just turn your brain off, batshit nonsense. There is a bunch of nudity in the film. Like, I feel like some of the scenes in this movie with the nudity are just like, you gotta see it to believe it. Like, who in the fucking right mind wouldn't leave a place knowing that you're being drugged and possibly having weird things done to you, and you have the ability to leave, but you don't. It was blowing my mind. It's so insanely sleazy. But overall, I had a really good time. Is it a great movie? Absolutely not. It's not really great, especially that we've seen better movies like The Whip in the Body and, you know, certain Jekyll and Hyde movies, which I'm not saying it actually is a Jekyll and Hyde thing. I may or may not be saying that. But there's a lot of ideas here, like I said, that have been done before this and have been done after this. Does this movie separate itself? Not really. I mean, it runs about 100 minutes. I feel like it might be a little bit too long, but I never was bored in this movie. I was never bored. There's so many like random characters and random things that are happening throughout this movie that it keeps you intrigued, and it's just got this aura, it's got this atmosphere about it that you really want to find out what's going on. It's pretty cool. I like it. So Scream of the Demon Lover from 1970. It's sleazy, it's ridiculous, it's kind of over the top, it's stupid at times, but it's also sexy too. Like, I mean, Ernest Rivers, she looks so good in the movie, man. Oh, like really, really good. But I gotta say, man, there's a bunch of people in this film that you probably recognize if you're familiar with Spanish films and Italian films. Character actors, they show up in all over the place. Pretty cool cast, though. I really like the cast. Actually, the inspector in this film is really cool. I like him. But I'm gonna give this one a solid 7 out of 10. Sleazy, atmospheric, good time, ridiculousness. Scream of the Demon Lover. Yeah, so that's gonna do it here for day 20. 31 Days of Horror. Sorry, I gotta wet the throat before I start coughing. I'm still sick. So, anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for the review. Don't want to give too much more away from it, but I do recommend it. I mean, if you're into these type of films, and why not watch it? It's all right. So, I'll take you guys tomorrow on day 21, and as usual,